Three, two, one. Have you ever had a dream that you could want you want them to do you so much you could do anything? I'm Adam from Your Movie Sucks. This is Sardonicast. I did that from memory, and I haven't seen that in...
Really? Because that came all washing back to me. I'm Alex from IHG, just so you know.
I haven't seen that in a few years.
Yeah,
I think.
old school YouTube, and things were a little bit simpler, a little bit reel back. Charlie bit my finger. It's like that's what it was, right? It's just like
Charlie bit my
kids saying
NFT.
silly things and like pandas falling over and quite innocent compared to what it's like now, huh? That changed real quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, because YouTube initially, like, a lot of the content was like, okay, someone clearly recorded this on VHS and it was so funny to them, and now there's an accessible place where everyone can just like share the things that they love, and that was just one of them. Just someone in 2011 decided, hey, this funny clip of this kid that can't formulate his sentence.
So innocent.
Yeah,
I'm glad you did whip that one out there and go down the memberberry lane. But I was going to whip out the ongoing wow is happening right now.
Yeah,
that's quite a good one to get this going.
Thank you. You know, it works even better when we both have intro statements.
Something in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then if I flop,
cover more bases.
You can save it.
There you go. Teamwork.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about Waking Life in a bit. We saw a film called Mars Express. So this is a double animation episode, which I think is cool.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool.
What'd you think?
Two underappreciated animation spectacles. I basically have the inverse experience with Mars Express that I had with the Alien thing, like the last episode we did.
A nice palate cleanser. A nice little refreshing.
Yeah, with it being sci-fi, with it like kind of being reminiscent of these sci-fi ideas, and there's like shades of Chinatown, RoboCop, and these classic, Blade Runner, these kind of ideas, and making something new out of it. And it being animated, this is like a dream project for me. It almost is like it was tailor-made for me.
Good.
Like something I would want to see exactly. How this has gone under the radar the way it has.
Yeah, nobody's talking about it.
What is the deal with that? I was hoping you might know something about that, because it came out. Well, it came out of Cannes, didn't it? But in 2023, not this year's one.
So I think
it's been a full year of the festival.
Yeah, so I think technically, if it were to be eligible for the Oscars, it would be for next year, because I think the US wide/limited release is technically 2024. Now, I heard from some people that saw it in theaters that they were like only playing the English dub. So I don't know how that was. I watched it in the original language, which is French.
Yeah, same.
I tend to watch things in the language that the director made it in. So just an FYI for people that want to check it out.
Yeah, you want that mouth animation to, all that dedication they put into animating to the lip sync, and then to just like dub it is, it seems like missing the point.
Yeah, let's see. I have a theory on why nobody knows about it, because no Oscar buzz yet, and hopefully they notice it for next year's Oscars. Otherwise, go fuck yourselves for the 80th time, Academy.
But even like on YouTube, there's nothing. The biggest video right now is a review from Movie Man 101, shout out, with 741 views. Like, there's no coverage of this movie. Even the trailer for the film only has like 400k views, and that's on the Rotten Tomatoes indie YouTube account. So
okay, so here's my other theory, which makes a bit more sense. Unlike something like Scavenger's Reign, which has a good amount of buzz and people are talking about, this is not on any streaming service. It doesn't look like. It looks like you're only able to like buy or rent it, which I think if this were just like dropped on Netflix at some point or HBO, I think this would probably take off because people would just be able to watch it more accessibly. I think that's probably the biggest reason why nobody's talking about it, because it really seems like it's something that everyone would really enjoy, you know?
Definitely.
It's got a bit of Ghost in the Shell vibes in there too, and great tone.
The Cyberpunk Edge Runners was a huge success just a few years ago, and this is like definitely like a cyberpunk sci-fi thing. It's super accessible, under 90 minutes. Like
exactly.
This is like a dream animated project. It takes itself seriously, and it has like jokes without ruining the tone. It's still got like still like a procedural Chinatown-esque, like serious movie. You know, it's not aiming itself at kids. It's like there's stakes to what's going on. There's violence. There's like a level of intensity to some of this stuff that's like really unexpected. There were a couple times that made me laugh out loud. Like, it's really well written. This was like a real surprise from a first-time director too, who I kind of been following by accident, because I'd seen like vague stuff about this online on Twitter now and again, like clips or concepts and whatnot from it, because this director I'd known about since the Die Fantasy music video, which we've talked about on this podcast before.
One of the best music videos ever made. And
I'm right there with you. It's one of the most memorable, vivid music videos. Like the whole thing I can just like read in my head. It's like burned into my retina. It's such a memorable music video, and taking that kind of art direction and style and applying it to a science fiction narrative has really worked out. Like that same kind of style expanded into a full feature with I don't know, I feel like it's not like a Kubo situation where it's like, oh wow, this looks like something perfect. This has the look right. It's got the vibe right. But then the story, yeah, exactly. And I was just kind of, once I was past the first couple of acts, I was getting tense. Not just because the movie was like ramping up its stakes, but also just like, oh my god, they're like maintaining this quality throughout this. How are they going to drop the ball here? Like, is this going to trip right towards the end?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, how are they going to fuck this up? Because nobody's talking about this. Only has 76 Metascore, 7.5 IMDb. You'd think it's like a little low for something that I would expect people to just like be gushing over. I'm like, how are they going to fuck up the ending or something, right?
But it genuinely doesn't. Like it just keeps that momentum.
Yeah.
All the way. Yeah. It's only 7,000 ratings on IMDb right now, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Just the tiniest sample size. That is nothing.
I do want to throw out the music video we're talking about. Die Fantasy is spelled DYE:fantasy, directed by the same director as this film. This is his first feature, Mars Express, Jeremy Perrin. And if you want to watch it in good quality and not a re-upload on YouTube because the original got removed because it was too cool, you go to Vimeo, and there's an official release on Vimeo to watch the music video. It's one of the best music videos ever. You won't regret it.
Oh, that's why it's re-uploaded.
You might be disturbed by it, but that's, a good thing. So it was like...
Yeah, it really suits that song.
That's also a part of like the classic YouTube ecosystem.
That's right, because it would funnel you down to that same list of videos, wouldn't it? It was like, oh, the algorithm's taken me to this video again. Oh man, that's right.
Yeah, because I mean, like, the thumbnail was definitely like something that looked like hentai. It was literally just a shot of like, a woman's crotch with a hand going down the panties
at the pool,
like the close-up. It's like, okay, that thumbnail is gonna get a lot of clicks, but the music video was fucking incredible. And also disturbing to the point where people shared it, and it was one of those like, oh, have you seen this? Like, not quite Two Girls, One Cup, but still the same idea of like people were sharing it to like kind of get reactions.
Yeah, full on like cosmic horror.
Yeah,
in that little.
I'm glad that he was able to make a feature, because now I'm just excited for whatever he does. Because I've seen two things from you, and that was a long time ago. Like, 2011.
Oh yeah, it's 2011. Yeah. Over a decade ago.
Music video. So I'm glad that he finally got to make a feature, and I'm excited for whatever he does next. So yeah, let's talk a bit about the movie. It's he also worked on Last Man, which I haven't seen.
There's a show, that I heard is good.
It's on my watch list.
Again, I just don't know how you access it though. Like, where'd you even watch?
The 7 C's of tortilla restaurants.
It's crazy.
Lots of chefs.
The stuff like this is buried under. When it's just waiting. It feels like a ticking time bomb. Like, if you just showed this to the right audience, then this would have a way bigger reach.
If we had a Steam for movies, if we had one place that was just so good at what they did that competition didn't even matter, because the company that owned it isn't like public, because they're just so successful and they were able to like do things not for shareholders necessarily, but still make a lot of money.
Yeah.
If we just had a Steam for movie, it could have been Netflix, but it's not really. Now there's a bunch of Netflixes.
There's such a weird catch-22, this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what we want, but it's also like they don't know how to advertise it. They don't know where to put it. They don't know how to like get it to eyes.
That's where we come in. It'll be a hit as soon as
I'm so impressed.
The episode.
Yeah. I'm so impressed though that like, I was thinking about The Batman, which is also like a crime procedural, right?
Yeah.
But that's a long-ass movie. One of the biggest criticisms is the pacing of it. The stuff this movie achieves in 90 minutes, half the screen time, is immense. Like the characters it fleshes out, the world it builds, like the layers of world building that it just nods at and implies, and the philosophical kind of concepts it like winds up delving into, and these really kind of prescient and relevant ideas with social media and AI and emerging technology and the combination of it. It's like, this is everything that sci-fi is about, and just combining these genres in such a satisfying, reminiscent way.
Yeah, no time is wasted. And the concepts shown in this film and like parts of the narrative for sure are very familiar, but it takes its own detours that really make it special and make it and avoid the feeling of like, oh, come on, this, and you're just going to do this. And it's like an analogy I thought of like yesterday about repetitive art or like uninspired art was like, okay, let's say you're a painter. Like, what do you paint? Like, I'm going to paint a bowl of fruit. Like, okay, sure, you might have done a great job painting that bowl of fruit, but you're just painting a bowl of fruit because you know that other people have painted a bowl of fruit.
That's like what you're supposed to do.
I want to see what you're doing with I want to see a twist on the bowl of fruit. If you're going to draw a bowl of fruit, you got to do something fucking cool with it. You got to do something unique and interesting so that I can say, oh, this is from you, right? And that's what Mars Express is like, you know, there's elements of there are things that are like the bowl of fruit, but it veers away from the unsatisfying conclusions of those tropes. You know, the tropes are in there for sure, and it's very inspired, but it's not so derivative in a cynical way. It's not derivative because they don't have ideas. It's derivative because they love the wealth of art that's already existed, and they want to do their own thing with it and transform it and tell their own story. So yeah, very, very happy with how this went.
It's the exact kind of the homage that you want to see, whereas like in the Alien discussion, it's kind of the inverse, where it's like you're being smothered by these quote unquote mirages or references or whatever, without making something new. It's like the complete inverse approach.
The exact opposite.
Yeah, literally completely inverse.
It's funny that you're tying in Alien to this, because I woke up today and if you had not mentioned Alien Romulus, I probably never would have thought about it again in my entire life. Like, it's just so disposable. We saw it like a week ago. Like, it's so forgettable.
And our episode hasn't even gone up yet, so I'm curious to see what people are going to say. I think it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just base level stuff like visual design or just creativity of these sci-fi concepts. Like, when was the last time you were like wowed or impressed by a robot design of something? You know?
That's a good question.
Something like really stood out to you in a sci-fi thing, because this one was really tickling me that way.
Rogue One.
The different robot designs. Rogue One.
The Hopkins robot.
Okay,
it was so well designed.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Claptrap.
But yeah. Yeah, well.
Wally.
Hopefully we'll get to that next episode.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Damn.
Yeah,
that'll be on digital by that time.
But yeah, you're saying familiar ideas, like integrating holograms and using that to like highlight the disconnect between humanity and technology and all this kind of stuff. But having this design of it's the buddy cop dynamic, but the buddy cop is a. Can we talk about the spoiler? How do you want to navigate this?
Yeah, okay, here we go. Everybody, you've been told to see this movie. Fucking check it out. We both love it. Now we're going to talk spoilers. There we go. Thanks for remembering.
Because it's hard to talk about the concepts of the movie because it's kind of integrated into the plot, the way they reveal the way things work. You know, like this mind-speaking idea or this kind of brain cloning. They call it brain farmers, and this idea of like cloning being illegal, and this is all tied into this like central mystery. But the design of this buddy cop character is someone who has died 5 years ago, as of where the story takes place, and he's almost like reborn into a robot body with only his face being a hologram. And how that's visually kind of communicated is really interesting and fun. And the way they use that and the way it contrasts against everything, and the way they don't kind of fall into the trap of having the robot be for lack of a better word, robotic. He's like one of the most human kind of characters and expressive. And I love that scene where like he's cracking jokes and he's like doing a big hearty shoulder laugh. And it's like, there's so much personality with this movie. And the whole setting feels like a character as well as all the obvious main characters. And yeah, there's just a perfect amount going on like that. They just I don't know how they did it in the 90 minutes. I'm still kind of reeling from that because that is really impressive to me. But I just felt like all these characters get just fleshed out enough, including that lead too. I like what they managed to fit in there with like the addiction element, and yeah, it's really well done from that regard.
Yeah, in terms of like the hologram cop character, I love it conceptually, but I also am really impressed by how they managed to use that towards the benefit of the filmmaking in terms of like telling visual metaphors, like when he's walking away from the home. The idea of conceptually having a character where you can see through his head, they decided to show a visual of like, oh, his ex-wife and new partner behind his head, through his head, literally in a literal sense, but also in a metaphorical sense. And so the filmmaking is telling a story explicitly also, but the metaphor exists, the visual metaphor exists, and I love that they were able to use these concepts in that way and think of like, oh, how can we make a really great shot where you get one shot from a movie and there's things to chew on, there's things to think about, there's things to dissect, you know, there's layers to it. I love that.
There's so many layers just on this character alone, because it's not just that going on, because there's also the kind of humorous element that's built into his design, where he keeps kind of like needing to reboot, but there's not enough space on him to actually apply the reboot. So there's this Joker.
That is fun.
It's the logical extension of like your phone, basically. It's kind of like, what if your phone had its own autonomy and was like, had a personality? And the integration of like social media and the way people communicate is really interesting and plays into the kind of sneaking around element where you don't need to speak in order to communicate in this world. As long as you've got this kind of chip behind your ear, you can like have you basically have Discord built into your head is the way it's presented. And it's used really well with like building tension when they're sneaking around and having these secret conversations and like using passwords to buy drugs and whatnot. And yeah, so all just feels really organic the way it ties into itself and builds on itself, and they don't leave any huge question marks that aren't intended. Like they flesh out what you need to for this world to make sense and to be intriguing and be like, I haven't really been struck by a sci-fi world quite like this probably since like Mass Effect, if I'm being honest, where I'm like, I want to live in this world. I want to know everything about it. I want to know what's to come.
True.
Yeah, there's a lot it's saying and a lot it's doing with these concepts that feels so fresh yet familiar.
Yeah, I could have watched like 3 hours of this, but again, you know, it's the classic like a great movie is is never too long or too short. Or,
you want to be it's better to be left wanting more. Than like
that's what I'm trying
wishing
to say.
For it
My brain's a little goofed right now.
Yeah, well that was a great joke where like it's a core sort of premise in the movie that they refer to robots that are jailbroken, kind of like you would a phone, as they're robots. They don't have shackles on them. They have kind of ultimate freedom.
Yeah.
And there's this really funny gag at a certain point where the jailbreaking kind of hacker character has like a couple robots in her room. And she makes a comment like, oh, when you jailbreak them, they just want to get stoned and fuck all day long. And it's I like scream laughed at that. I thought that was such a funny little observation. Quite a like deep little comment.
Autonomy. It's like the jailbroken version of robots is just like, oh, they have their own agency now. They're just humans, basically.
Yeah, and that I was some of the emotions they managed to pull out of you through kind of making you empathize with these machines. that section towards the end where there is that poor robot that's like just given autonomy right as he's being like recycled, and he's like placed into this.
And they still go through it.
Recycling machine that like pulls him apart, and he's like screaming like, "What's happening? Please don't!" And it's like, oh my god, this is horrifying. This is genuinely horrifying. Like, this is getting me on like a concept level that is really thought provoking.
Yeah, there's love the animation, and I love like how very clearly like intently storyboarded this is. And, you know, very reminiscent. I think they might have even like reused some, what's the word for it? So like the skeleton of the animation. I think I like when he's swinging her head at the beginning, when he like grabs her head, her neck twists. Yeah. I think that might be, if it's not the same, it was at least very similar. Maybe it was like kind of an homage to the Die Fantasy music video. Because I think that happens to like one character in that.
Oh, I'd have to compare it side by side, but I wouldn't be surprised.
But either way, I mean, you know, that's a common thing in animation. Disney's done it forever. It's, you know, animation's very expensive, so it's not really a complaint. But one of the moments where I was like really like, oh, this movie's awesome, was like pretty close to the beginning. The visual of not only her catching herself with her hand on the broken glass on the window, which is already like, okay, this is like a little bit of like cringe in a good way, because there's you can kind of like feel the pain of the character, but you understand that she's like strong enough that she's not going to let go. But then as she's chasing and makes that jump over the broken sign, that shot of just like the blood spatter from her hand, the consistency of her hand still bleeding, but using that hand to grab onto the ledge and pull herself up. Just the way that the blood looks and the way that it's spattered, I was like, okay, this guy's got a vision. Like, he's got a vision. He knows what looks cool, and he's like, I would love to show this, and he pulls it off.
I'm glad you said that, because I noted down the same thing. You feel the blood splats and impact. That's how I put it. Yeah, there's this like amazing weight to everything, and it does all feel like meticulously storyboarded and detail oriented
in a perfect way.
Yeah, it flows so well.
Like, there's no close-up of it at that moment. It's not gratuitous.
No.
It's not obvious. It's like, it's something that you can't help but notice, and it's there.
And that applies not just to the, you know, frame by frame animation, but also to the way it's put together, the way it is storyboarded and edited, where there is this, what's the best way to describe it? Like a cadence to the way it is 90 minutes, it's cutting real quick. Scenes tend to be quite small, or almost like, I don't know, it's like snapshots, like getting from beat to beat to beat, but it will settle onto like a set piece or a tense scene. And that's normally when the music will pick up. That's when something really exciting will happen. Or like the car crash scene is kind of a good example of it. It's like building up to this conflict, and it really kind of maximizes the tension with the way it elongates these action sequences or build-ups. I love the way it's tied together with the foam coming out of the car after that chase, and then the build-up to the machines like removing the foam away, and it's just beautifully put together, and like, yeah, meticulous is the word I would use. And also like building up the intensity of these set pieces and kind of action scenes, where I feel like you do kind of get the best, most expressive, crazy one towards the end of the movie. It doesn't like blow its load too soon. It all feels like, yep, this is the perfect time to be doing this. Yeah. And man, 9 million euros.
Oh shit.
This is made for 9 million euros. That is insane.
That's pretty good.
That is insane.
I mean, like the animation is fantastic, and they use it the best with their limitations. Like, it's clearly not like Ghibli, right? They're utilizing a combination of like 3D and 2D, and there are definitely like cost cutting measures that they do to make this happen, but within that framework, it's nothing to complain about, and it's nothing that's like, oh, this looks cheap or bad. It's like, oh wow, you did a great job with the tools that you were given.
Yeah, if you use animation to its potential, you can kind of build that look into the style, so it's like less distracting, this kind of cost-cutting measures. It can go slightly too far in something like, I don't know, Invincible. I tend to notice that a bit more, but I actually found this to be quite consistent. Sure, you might not get like the multiple layers of shading on characters and whatnot that you might see in a Ghibli movie, but man, what do they cost? They must be like 100 million or something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, this this is definitely... I hope that this existing, just as like a proof of concept, can get them some more money and just continue making like high concept pieces of art.
Yeah, this is why it needs to, like we kind of have this prime example, you know, that's not from Japan.
Yeah.
It's a genre movie. It's not limited to being a kid's thing. Like that, and it's relevant. It wasn't made in like the 80s or something. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just come out. So yeah, now's I guess our chance to promote this or try and get more of it or spread its. I feel like we're just teetering on it with stuff like the Cyberpunk Edgerunners being a Netflix show and being so huge and successful, and like I feel like we're right teetering on it where we can go more into this space and see what we can do.
Yeah,
but it's not quite there.
There's definitely like a market for it.
Yeah, definitely.
There's definitely a thirst for it. Despite the animation not being like Ghibli levels, what they managed to do with it, I love the like recurring facial expressions that, even though like from a animation perspective, they can look at like a little bit simple, but the way that they use the simplicity to still showcase like a really great facial expression. She does that like kind of like wide mouthed smirk a lot in the film. Yeah. And they really understand where to use those.
It definitely gives it personality.
Yeah.
And not to just like drill pointless dialogue all the time.
True.
Like they'll often just use the visuals to communicate what a character's going through, like the main character who's, you know, doing the push-ups and the sweat beads and the blood dripping down. It's like all you need to see to understand where that character's headspace is.
Hot take. People are going to hate me for saying this. This is what I wish anime was. This is what I feel people pretend anime is. Like if more anime was like this, I would watch more anime. But then when you get anime, there's the anime tropes, you know? There would be things. Do you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
I see what you're saying. If you remove like the obvious examples like Akira or Ghost in the Shell.
Oh, of course. Not saying that there hasn't been anime this good, of course.
Yeah, but it's definitely like a rarity, I think, for it to be of this quality, or at least appeal to things that I want to see in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think even anime fans wouldn't. I don't know, what would they point to outside of Akira and Ghost in the Shell?
Oh, yeah.
Some of the obvious classics like that, like recently anyway, you know, in the last 20 years, what would be a prime example of something like this that isn't aimed at kids?
Yeah,
or something like that.
And if you are an anime fan, you're going to love this movie. Because it is very, it's like he's definitely inspired by anime. Like he's very anime inspired. That was very apparent in the Die Fantasy music video as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is just a bit more refined or tight, even, for what comparing this to a lot of anime that people love, especially recently.
It's not wearing the anime inspiration on its sleeve like it is the like Chinatown or Blade Runner.
True.
It seems more interested in doing something like that, but it just happens to be animated.
Yeah, yeah, it's fucking awesome, and I can probably if somebody wanted to watch it again like today, I'd do it. Like I just saw it like a couple days ago.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about like, oh, I might chuck this back on once I recorded this episode.
Yeah,
I can't really stop thinking about it, and it's such like a treat.
I got the Blu-ray.
Yeah, hell yeah!
Great music, great tone.
Yeah, how did you find the implementation of that music? Because it was kind of sparse. It felt like it wasn't overscoring constantly. It was noticeable when the music was kicking in.
Yes,
I guess like an intentional kind of way.
Yeah, it definitely gave it like a really good sense of energy when it needed to.
Yeah,
it didn't overstay its welcome. It didn't feel like forced. The composition wasn't like manipulative or anything. It was like, okay, I get the tone. I enjoy what you're doing with the tone, and it fits, and it's something, you know, that I could imagine this director, you know, having seen the Die Fantasy music video. It's like, okay, I get why you've made these choices, and I agree with them, and I like them. So yeah, great score overall, honestly.
I just remember what the thought I was trying to get back to is the comment you made about the Ghibli stuff. I honestly don't think it's actually that far off. I hear what you're saying with the like simplified characters, because that is noticeable, especially in like wide shots. But man, it does go up to close-ups of characters, and the animation is like great. The design is quite simple, sure, but like the frames that are in there and like the expressions they're getting out is, I don't know, it's never like distracting on that front to me, as far as like, and it never felt limited by its budget. It never came across like that to me. And man, like some of the action scenes and payoffs you get towards the end, I love that little scene where the buddy cop character we're just talking about, he kind of like takes over and just like grabs that gun off the main character and fires a couple of shots in the air and then like perfectly times this whole like action sequence. And it's like, it's so satisfying, so thoughtful. That whole action scene he has with that. It's kind of like an organic version of those police drone things from RoboCop. It's kind of a creepy, weird design. And that whole like organic thing was really cool. An awesome world building like touch where it's part of the world, but it's never really indulged in. It's not too important to the, well, actually it's kind of fundamental to the plot, but I love that idea of like, oh yeah, if you kind of take the robot technology to its logical conclusion, maybe we would figure out how to warp organics. And then there's like a scene where they mention this organic technology is better because it's recyclable and will decompose, and like these weird kind of creepy concepts like that. And obviously is great for animation, like some of the weird visual flair they can whip out with that, like in that big fight towards the end where the four-legged RoboCop organic monster thing has this kind of mouth that releases these tendrils from, and it looks like veins, and it's like a crazy visual, great like flex of animation, and yeah, it's so cool what they be playing with that.
Cool is the right word, and it's been a long time since I've seen a movie be so consistently cool without feeling like it's trying way too hard to be cool.
Yeah, you know? Like they have a robot saying like fuck early on, and I wasn't annoyed by it, and it was cool. Like the way they did it was like, oh, this is like charming and cool. It's like a robot in an anti-robot protest, like telling them to. It's like funny. It's like, oh, it's not just like looking at the camera. Hey, isn't it funny that it's a robot saying fuck kind of humor? It's like, oh, this is all based within a world, and they actually care about keeping this consistent with itself. And it's like, it's only a little thing, but man, does it go far. I will say though, my biggest issue with this is actually the name. I don't think it's a great name, especially if we're thinking about like marketability or like what the film is about.
It is almost misleading. Yeah,
like it seems like I thought at first, oh, is this going to be like kind of a simple A to B, just like it's about the journey.
We're getting to Mars.
Yeah, it's like the Polar Express, Mars Express. That's like what I think of in my mind when I hear that title, when it's like about so much more than that. I don't think it does a good job of like encapsulating what the film's really about or how good it is.
All right, what's it
kind of sounds, it sounds more like the kind of kiddie stuff, animation stuff needs to like avoid. But a better title, man, I don't know. AI, artificial intelligence.
How about Robot Dreams?
Just genuinely yes. Yeah, can we swap those titles around? They can have Mars Express. Robot Dreams. I liked how they embraced that too. They just called them robots. They didn't like call them freakers or come up with some like slang for it. It's just like, no, these are robots. And again, just another positive of animation. Like it just sells crazier concepts so like naturally and well, like you're not even really thinking about things clashing that might be a distraction in something that's live action in the same way.
True. Yeah, this would suck live action. Unless it was like Villeneuve or something. But
yeah, exactly. It would have to be so high budget with like the best people doing it.
Yeah. It'd be like $300 million.
And there's no way you could make it, I guess, for 9 million euros. Which is also, again, it's like, man, this almost seems like the best avenue to explore these big ideas. Like they did it. You know, it gets all like 2001 towards the end. It gets like quite trippy and existential. Yeah. I love that whole sequence with the lights and the AI all kind of sacrificing their physical form in order to go up to space. It is, yeah, man, really like powerful, memorable imagery. And now, yeah, the using the hologram stuff with when he starts kind of crying and trying to wipe away the tears. That's quite a memorable image too.
I love that visual. Just
I thought that was really clever.
Is like trying to rub the tears off of it.
Yeah, a human instinct juxtaposed against like something so inhuman.
Yeah, and like clashing in both like a literal and metaphorical sense.
Yeah, easily as like memorable or great as the scenes in Her or Blade Runner 2049 with the like overlaying hologram sex scenes and stuff. It's like that tier to me.
Yeah, like it's just so easy to remember. It's not leaving my brain anytime soon. Unlike Alien.
Yeah.
Romulus. I always have to search for that title in my brain for a little bit.
Romulus, yeah.
Romulus.
It's in the water.
It's shot in the fucking water.
The bloody fucking water. Yeah.
That's the most memorable part of that movie. When it was in the trailer.
Yeah, so forget about Alien. Let's go for Mars Express.
Fucking everybody watch Mars Express. What's your fucking problem? What's your deal?
Yeah, what's the industry's problem? What is everyone's problem? 7.1 thousand ratings? What? No.
Fucking, what are you doing? What are you doing? Fucking idiots. And then this podcast episode is going to get less views than the Alien Covenant one, because this is in the title and not, Alien Romulus.
That goes back to the Catch-22.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People just want to have familiar things, yeah.
You'd need to like bury it within like Deadpool and Wolverine. Yeah, so how do you get out of that Catch-22? People don't click on it and don't care about it because it's not a known thing. But this is also like the best example of a recent thing like this.
Yeah.
For what we want.
Someone's gotta fucking give this to the Red Letter Media people.
Mm-hmm.
They can get movies out there.
Damn straight.
All right, what do you rate it?
I give this a perfect 10.
Dang.
5 out of 5 with a like. This is everything I want to see. It feels like it was tailor-made for me. Influences are clear, but I love the new spin on it, showing me sci-fi kind of ideas in ways I haven't seen them before. This world is so well thought through. I love the way the plot is so organically linked together, and the villains being this like megacorp entity, and it not being corny. Like I'm sure some of these ideas might sound kind of corny, like the wiping away the tears and whatnot, but believe me, like the way it's visually presented does come across well. And it's like the board kind of winds up being the villains, which is like perfect for a cyberpunk setting. I love the way that the mystery comes about. I just love procedurals. It's one of my favorite like just styles of setting a story. And if any of that sounds like something you'd like, please check it out.
Hell yeah, they really sell it. 9 out of 10 from me. I bought the Blu-ray. Love it. Go watch it. Fucking idiots.
Go watch.
Fucking stupid motherfuckers.
Is it because it's also in French too?
Fucking, you're so dumb because you haven't seen it yet. I'm smart because I've seen it now. I was dumb 3 days ago, but now I'm smart.
Yeah, I do like that they did commit to like the whole thing's like animated in French. That I guess that wasn't even a concern of like, man, we might get a broader audience if we make sure this is in English. And yeah, I like the story, but can we just tell this in English?
I mean, there is a dub.
There is a dub.
The dub exists. That's how I imagine a lot of people are going to watch it. And I haven't seen the dub, so I can't speak to the quality of it. But
or when I could imagine like Netflix or HBO like buying this and like remaking it or something, maybe.
Yeah, maybe
in English.
Yeah, you never know. It'll be I hope more people see it, and I hope it gets more accessible, and I hope that they make more things with no limitations.
Yeah, I want to see like a cosmic horror project from this team. I really feel like horror is like an untapped animation space. You got your Japanese examples here and there, but man, if we get something like this, as well made as this, but evoking horror instead of like sci-fi, I think that could be big. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It would be nice to have something like that. All right. We also saw Waking Life, directed by Richard Linklater. And what is it, 2001?
2001.
Waking Life. This is a movie that I've seen quite a few times. It's a very odd, very unique movie. And very unique. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of conversations. it's a lot of like very naturalistic conversations, as if they just kind of like let the camera roll and just had people talk and, you know, discuss philosophical ideas and concepts. Almost like a collage of like TED Talks in a way, but a bit more, a bit more back and forth, rotoscoped. So they took the film footage and had a bunch of different animators working on different scenes at each of those frames, but in a way that wasn't necessarily trying to have a hyper consistent style throughout, where each scene gets to kind of play in their own way with how they present the footage. Nice little details and little visual flares and yeah, it's a movie that's always stuck with me, and I think I enjoy it more every time I watch it. I think that as I get older, I'm engaging more with the concepts. I think that the number of scenes when I was younger where I was kind of like a little checked out, maybe not understanding the concepts. I think that there was a greater number when I was younger, and now that I'm like 33 and I'm more actively engaging with a lot of the ideas within the film, or I guess able to understand some of these concepts a bit better. It's a movie that is definitely more engaging for me now.
Yeah, because I would say it's impossible to fully engage on a first watch.
Yeah.
With every single idea that's thrown out there, I think it's literally impossible unless you're mega big brain, mega mind. Or
fully animation intentionally.
Yeah. But it needs that wobbly look to even work as a concept. It needs to have this kind of dreamlike atmosphere. It needs that looseness of the dream framing for this concept to really work. I feel like because the film was shot like normally on these like cheap video cameras first, from what I understand, before they started the process. So there's like a underlying film. I feel like if I watched that without the rotoscoping, I'd kind of hate that film.
Yeah.
But through the rotoscoping adaptation of it gives it this almost like excuse for presenting these ideas in this way, because like I love the ideas of philosophy and these deep, heady, like Greek ideas that they're throwing around. And like one of my favorite films is Stalker, which plays with a lot of like philosophy, but it kind of buries it within this kind of sci-fi framing. Whereas this is it's almost like directing the audience. It's almost feels like a documentary at points, where it's like people being interviewed and it's like questioning, is this like what Aardman did with one of their shows, Creature Comforts, where they kind of like interviewed real people and then layered animation on top of it? And I wasn't sure like what parts were real, and Alex Jones shows up and you're like, what okay, but let's try and figure out what's going on. It's almost like a bombardment, and I feel like within that hour and 40 minutes, an hour of it is like 10 out of 10 to me. Added expressive animation, like you're saying, where they'll like put in a little symbol here, or make the eyes a bit bigger here, or add sharp teeth in here when they're saying a certain word or whatever. That stuff's great. But the other 40 minutes was like a mix of just kind of feeling like the repetition of the structure of that kind of feeling of, oh, this is very loose and random, and we're going to like another interview here with this kind of deep subject that we're going to explore for just a moment. Now we're going to go over here in this direction, and we're going to talk about this really heady thing. And it's quite like scatterbrained in that way. And I got to admit, it was losing me right before that scene where the main character kind of has more of a goal or a more agency in the story, where they start kind of learning to lucid dream and talking about the characters that are explaining the situation where he's in, where he's like stuck in this loop of like dreams within dreams and waking up within dreams and these rules of dreams and all these people theorizing about dreams and science and the meaning of life and all this stuff. And it's like so much narrative instead of just pure randomness when it gets to his like, hey, I'm kind of getting scared that I'm sort of trapped in this endless dream.
Yeah.
All the way up to that, like the curse ending, and up, and it's no longer rotoscoped. And it's like the end.
Yeah, it's just infinite.
Kind of a dark ending. Yeah, it's infinite. Kind of scary.
Yeah. What's kind of funny is like I was almost worried, like, because I haven't seen this movie in, I don't know, maybe 10 years, maybe 5. I don't know, probably 10, somewhere around there. And as I was rewatching it this time, I was like, oh, did I say too much by saying that it was like about dreams? Because I wasn't sure if it, like, how important it was that it, you know, I didn't spoil, because they don't really even address the idea of dreams until like halfway through the movie. But watching it again, I think it's probably a better watch if you kind of know going into it that it's dreamlike and that's what they're going for. Because otherwise, if you don't have that context before starting the movie, the first half of it is like what it's going for in that sense. So I almost feel like they should have addressed that concept earlier in the movie.
I didn't really have that first, like, oh, this is like a 10 out of 10 experience right here moment up until... It took a few different interviews up until that one with, it's like a scientist who's talking about like the new evolution. And he like describes this process, which I feel like I've thought about, but have never been able to find the words or like verbalize in any way. And hearing this quite succinct, like clearly put idea of this timeline of humanity and how these huge developments are happening in shorter and shorter increments to the point where I guess theoretically we could start seeing it happen in real time, which kind of blew my mind because this was made in 2001.
Yeah.
And you could argue we are living in that right now. It was right on the precipice, I guess, he was describing. I was getting like chills, like, oh my God, this is this is crazy. And yeah, it's definitely overwhelming, but I feel like everyone watching this will have their equivalent of that scene. Like there are so many concepts and ideas, and as long as you're engaging with some of what's being said, there will be one that's like, oh, I've never thought about that concept explained that way, or man, yeah, just the way they're presenting this is something I haven't thought about before, or that's an interesting way of phrasing something I have thought about before. It's definitely thought-provoking. It's just like the level at which you're willing to say, okay, I've had enough. Because there was definitely a point for me where I wasn't engaging at the level I think the film wanted me to, because I was just kind of like almost exhausted.
Yeah.
with what it was throwing at me.
Yeah, there is a lot. And, you know, every single time I've watched this film, I love it. I love it a lot. But every single time I've watched it, there is a moment, it's welcome. Like maybe you could have cut like 4 of these interviews and it would have just like been more tight and flowed.
Yeah,
better.
I was thinking just like 10-15 minutes is just about it for me.
Yeah.
It would make this about perfect for what we're playing with here.
Yeah, exactly. And you have the freedom to like restructure them, like reorganize them too in this type of film.
Because like the moment for me, I noted it down where I was like, I just really don't get what this section's even trying to say. Where it's got like these 4 dudes walking down the street, and I couldn't even type fast enough to like get down what they were saying. They were like just walking down the street, these four dudes just speaking. I don't even know what they were saying. And then they go about like all action, no theory, all theory, no action. There's that old man like climbing a pole, and it's like that went way over my head. I just don't know what it was.
Yeah,
even trying to say it at that point.
Yeah, well, there's like a healthy mix of like both. Richard Linklater was asked about Alex Jones's inclusion, and later says it's insane that the info. Oh yeah, and he's almost unrecognizable. Alex Jones, like fucking 20 years ago, is so different.
Yeah, his voice is a lot less deep. Yeah.
As soon as he started turning a little red, then I was like, oh, that's Alex.
Yeah, I like that touch of them like just changing his color to like bright red when they're coloring him in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very great concept. I love the idea of taking something like a film that's very much about dreams and dream logic, but about so much more, and then deciding like, okay, we're going to rotoscope this, we're going to tell it in an interesting way, using the concept to further the art and what you're showing, the approach to stylization throughout, and the differentiations in each scene. I love the music a lot. The music really grows on me. It's just looping in my head right now, honestly. It
was actually thanks to that music that kind of sold me stylistically on what it was doing early on, because it opens, I think, of someone like on a train. I was like not used to the style yet, and I was like, man, this is looking kind of funky. I feel like drunk, like watching this with the way everything's moving and shaking around. And I was like, oh man, am I not gonna like dig this style? But then like right after that is that scene with the musicians like playing that song, and I felt like, oh, this style really complements like music in particular, and like instruments being played and that looseness. It kind of looks how you'd imagine music might, how much that style works for it. Like with when Linklater appears in the back of that boat and he gets in, it's like, this what really works for me as far as like communicating this dreamlike, surreal kind of tone. It's a little bit off, it's a little bit wrong, but it's also exactly how dreams feel. And like that kind of stuff I really enjoy, like exploring the concept of dreams and having like writing characters that are like, hi, I'm like the dream exposition guy. I really like that character, who's talking about like what you can do with that special type of dreaming, the lucid dreaming. Yeah, that was like a really memorable character, and there's a bunch of humor in there too, that comes from that, like the Alex Jones scene is funny, profound or not to you. They're definitely memorable.
Yeah, it kind of it feels almost more tied together when they show the main character flipping through channels and going back and forth, and they're like just speakers essentially on television talking about philosophical concepts, because the movie in of itself very much feels like flipping through channels and that stilted nature of chronology.
Saying, oh, Alex is going to miss out on something for not have seen the before trilogy.
Kind of, not really. I was just going to point this out anyway. So the Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy characters are the same characters as intended to be a literal thing that happens in their timeline, because this movie is, you know, in a dream state through the perspective of before sunrise. And then imagine those two characters in his dream continuing a conversation that didn't
Tasting of Views or one of his other movies or something. Yeah, he has that kind of whole conversation about the idea of that writer who wrote that book. It was a success, and then they met a string of people that were identical to. I haven't taken LSD, so I don't know how much I can break down some of this stuff.
But I mean, I'm not saying I don't think you need to connect LSD to it, but you know, it is a mind-opening kind of perspective drug, I guess. But yeah, I mean, like in my opinion, I feel like everything that happens in our brain is in our brain, and dreams are something that happen in our brain. But I just think that the question of, you know, being caught off guard by something and being like, okay, just because we don't feel like we have agency over something doesn't mean it's magic, right? In the sense that like there's like literally songs that I've written in my dreams. But when I say I've written, I don't mean I sat down and started like writing or constructed it in my dream. I mean, the song was already playing. I wrote it because it's from my head, right? So like this has happened to me like twice in the past month.
If that's really where it came from, right?
Yeah. But I mean, that is where it, in my opinion, that is where it came from.
But like, do we actually know? Isn't that kind of also underestimate?
Well, I'm not like, you know, when they start talking about like telepathy, I'm not a person that goes like, that's impossible. But I don't. It would have to be like studied in a way that, you know, isn't that weird. Which, you know, there's a lot of things that isn't that weird. You know.
Yeah, and that's kind of what makes this movie good. Is it's pontificating about these things.
It's asking questions without necessarily giving you hard answers about things and letting you think about it.
Yeah, and it's not really the films to add a perspective, and you can kind of filter through what you like the sound of and what you don't, because there's all sorts. So yeah, there's a lot to filter through.
Yeah, I'm willing to believe that like there are things in our brain, because the you that I'm talking to right now that's understanding and interpreting and creating a narrative of me talking to you is not the whole part of your brain. That is just part of your brain. And there's different, you know, if you go into like Jungian psychology or anything, there's like different yous that might exist, or different parts of you that some are more suppressed and come out in different ways. But I believe, or at least from like a practical standpoint of how I think about myself and operate in my own mind, I believe that like there's different parts of my brain that I'm not conscious of that are doing things in the sense that like it's kind of difficult to verbalize, but like there are different me's in there. Like there's another person in there that might not have the same like capabilities of being able to form a narrative in the sense that I'm like communicating to you right now, right? Like that's a very instinctual part of your brain. That's not like a decision you make. That's not that you can post hoc justify or rationalize and work backwards. But at the end of the day, it's a feeling that you have. It's an instinct that you have. And regardless of whether or not it's nature or nurture or a combination of the two, it's a part of your brain that your conscious self doesn't really have any control over. And so, you know, you existing, whether, you know, you're attracted to something or you're hungry or you're hurt or you're depressed or, you know, we already know that there are tricks that we can play on our brain to appease that other part, the subconscious, right? So like seasonal depression, right? So we know that sunlight can play a role in terms of how we perceive our outlook of like any day-to-day experience, right? Like we know that there are chemicals that we can ingest into our body that go into our bloodstream that will affect our brain chemistry in a way like antidepressants or like any number of illicit substances. That the world is the same, the situation is the same, but you tweak a few things, but we do these things to appease that part of our brain in a way that we can narratively say that we're more happy and comfortable in ways that don't necessarily make like a narrative sense from a decision standpoint, if that makes sense.
I hear what you're saying. We've basically had to create this narrative as a species where we have to kind of overstate our importance.
Yes.
We still don't really get. And the fact that Greeks thousands of years ago had already reached this conclusion, and it's like an entire civilization that is gone. That is like it's overwhelming, to say the least. Like, yeah, what chance do I have after these geniuses thousands of years ago coming to these conclusions? Like, yeah, I don't know how else to explain it outside of it being an overwhelming kind of phenomenon. And there are points where the film can feel overwhelming as a result, with like where it's taking you and like, man, how do I even build a conclusion from this? Because it's like, yeah, for this to make sense, there's so much I gotta like buy into. Like, what actually is that? Like, what?
Yeah, I don't.
How can I conceptualize this shit?
Exactly. Like what? I don't even think about the Big Bang as anything other than like a theoretical concept for like our need to think of like a start point. When in my mind, like I don't know how anyone could, even if we were to, there was like nothing before the Big Bang. Like I don't, and it doesn't matter if there was nothing before. And in our brain, we grow up in a world where everything you see in front of you, the computer, you know where that came from. You know where the start point was for anything. Have that urge, that feel, that need to think of, you know, are far more complicated and way more connected dots than like a non-human animal species could, or would even be tempted to think about. And so to me, there are certain questions or explanations or theories where it doesn't even really make a difference to me and how I live my life, whether or not like the Big Bang was a thing or whether or not there was a thing before the Big Bang. So, you know, like it's not, that doesn't keep me up at night because it's not even like a relevant question to me.
That doesn't, but the question of where we like come from, or like where does this come from?
Why I think that you should not necessarily think about or get hung up on the idea of where things come from, but start to think more about why you think that you need
this like crushing self-awareness. I'd like some at least some idea of like where the consciousness came from, or like why it is a thing. Like it's
why do we value that?
Why do we value it? And also, like, isn't it the very thing that makes us what we like? So the dominators of Earth, the owners of, we own Earth. We've like defeated Mother Nature. It's so fucked up, and it's thanks to that. I feel like, yeah, basically, we've like, it's the last Pokemon, and we've just fucking
value because we're human, not that they have any kind of value outside of humanity,
which goes back to humans, what we've evolved to perceive,
exactly,
what we need to, and the idea that like there is heaps to perceive, and perhaps the thing that aided or explains consciousness is something we actually cannot perceive. Maybe there's stuff going on that we genuinely just do not have the capability of understanding. And the film does a good job of communicating that.
Yeah, like quantum mechanics. Like
yeah, exactly.
Our idea of like the concept of like randomness, even is just through like a human lens. To me, I think about it the same way that I think about just like probability concepts. So a lot of people will say that there are conditions on Earth for life to even exist naturally in the first place, and some will use that as an argument towards like a greater power or Gnosticism,
the Goldilocks zone, right? And all this, yeah.
But to me, something that's improbable, if the universe is so large that we don't know where it ends, I guess that's my understanding. Like I'm open to the concept of like an infinite amount of space, right? So anything that is improbable is inevitable. It example is talking about is, over an infinite amount of time, everything that is possible will eventually happen, right?
Yeah.
If time is infinite or space is infinite, so that to me there is no improbability. To think about it in such a human-centric, illusory way, even of thinking that something is improbable, that's not even like relevant, in my opinion.
Yeah, we have more control over the things than perhaps we do.
It's an illusion.
Or, going into the free will idea, going into these ideas that, it's often brought up as like a motivational thing of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and like you can do it, and the only thing that's stopping you is you, and these kind of things.
Yeah, what is you?
I feel like they're tenets of at least Western society a lot of the time. I can't speak for anywhere else, but I feel like it's an unsettling idea.
I mean, that exists. It's a very human thing.
Yeah, for sure. But I feel like it's an uncomfortable idea for a lot of people. They don't want to start going down these.
What you can look at this geographic, and people will base their idea of something logical are pretty closely with what they are already uncomfortable with, right? There's a direct connection there, right? And universally, human beings are afraid of death, obviously, because if we weren't, then the members of our species that weren't afraid of death probably didn't last very long. Right? So evolutionarily, with the human beings that exist, the overwhelming majority of them would have to be the way that a lot of people trick themselves into thinking, and these narratives that we create around the idea of like afterlife or reincarnation or cosmic justice and good and evil, and like everybody that I think is good is going to the good place after death and surviving their own death, and everybody that I think is bad is going to a bad place surviving their own death forever. Yeah, and there's a cosmic justice, right? Yeah, that's just how human beings operate.
It seems like a concept that almost has to manifest as a necessity with consciousness or self-awareness. You have the ability to plan for the past and the future, and that is what is giving you the edge. Then you need some like mechanism to address that, like, if I look far enough ahead, this experience is going to end, and I need something to soothe or like organize around that can stop that being as crushing as it is if you stare it right in the face,
Yeah. I mean, this experience as in like the narrative experience, but it ends every time you go to sleep and wake up, right? How do you know that you didn't die and you're a robot now? How do you know that you didn't die and your consciousness was uploaded to an AI and you're a completely different person? All the cells in your body, except for like one part of your brain, like get replaced every 7 years, right? What is the concept of you? It's like the ship of Theseus, right? Does you end at like, and they were even talking about this conceptually in the film where she was talking about like, okay, there's a part of your brain that has to tell a story for you to associate yourself with the picture of the baby that you knew was you, but in order for that doesn't mean it's not real when I say it's an illusion, but it's not necessarily like objective, if that makes sense, right? Like you can say that you existing, like personhood, like what do you think of yourself? You could say that the cells of my body don't necessarily end at just like what I can control. Like I'm breathing in air, I'm taking in nutrients from food, right? Other now a part of me, but it's like just the like energy of those cells, right? Like, so the way that we've obviously have had to survive evolutionarily has essentially just dictated how we perceive self and sense of self, and these ideas can be translated into ideas of community.
And the way that sinks into, I love when they're talking about the way that applies to film specifically, and how you could see filmmakers as like,
oh my god, yeah,
they are kind of filmmaking and video and stuff like this.
Yeah, that guy who said that is director Kaveh Zahedi. I don't know how to pronounce his full name, but I started getting into him going through my 2016 list because he made this fucking incredible, I guess, I didn't know what the hell he was doing before this, and maybe I should just check out some of his other stuff, because I was kind of shocked to see him in this, because every other time I watched this movie, I didn't recognize him. And then this time I watched it, now that I've like gotten familiarized with at least one of his shows, I'm like, oh my god, is that Kaveh? And then and then it was the guy who was like crying.
You know, I remember the character in the movie. I'm talking about this show, the show about the show.
The show about the show, yeah.
It's only got like 160 ratings on here.
I know.
This looks interesting, though. Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm the guy.
So I wonder if this is a character I've heard of or should know type thing in these interviews. But kind of feeding into what you were saying with this idea of like seeing ourselves as separate from animals, or like seeing that as an insult, I guess, in some way. There's that interesting scene where the main character bumps into that woman, and then they kind of revisit their awkward meeting and try to have this dialogue about like, I want to see you, I want you to see me, I'm not an ant. Yeah. Not far enough. There's not that much in it, really, if you're looking at this on a cosmic scale, you know, like, and is there necessarily anything wrong with that? And it's kind of like this, I don't know, it's just peeling the curtain back in the self-awareness of like, yeah, a lot of these, it's kind of bringing up, is this, I don't know, I don't necessarily load that as a positive or a negative. It's just kind of reality to me, whereas that character in that scene is kind of distraught by it, trying to prove that they're not an ant. And yeah, these are concepts that will upbuild this. But yeah, they definitely delve into a lot of different perspectives with that, including like going back to the main character's journey. I really love how he kind of communicates how confusing everything is, and that's like another like, oh, this is like a interesting character to frame this around, where he's kind of as confused as the audience, and he's like, yeah, these dreams are weird. It's just kind of this string of people like saying stuff to me, and it sounds really important, but I don't really know how to like pass this. And it's like, oh, this is a nice level of self-awareness, like to the audience, to kind of nod like, yeah, this is like quite experimental, this is a crazy idea, and this is a good way of like cementing it, and you know, not getting too lost in the abstract nature of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what's funny is with the inclusion of like Alex Jones and being more aware, is like, oh, okay, is Linklater voting for RFK? I guess not anymore. But it's interesting to kind of just see the collage of different ideas, very, very like anti-establishment sentiment too, but not necessarily directed in any like.
Yeah. Also remembering this is 2001.
Oh, of course, exactly. I know.
Like it's kind of what we were saying in the American Beauty discussion, where it was a weird.
It had a different flavor then.
Yeah, exactly. Like this, I assume this came out before. Yeah, it would have been made before 9/11, obviously. So it was kind of before that big shift into the early 2000s and kind of the apathy that came with that. But that kind of thoughtful hope that we mentioned in that American Beauty discussion does carry over into this as well, where it is about like, yeah, but what is the place? What is our place in the universe right now? That seems like the concern of like the people in this movie, and I don't know. I don't feel like that's a cultural sort of thing right now in the same way, beyond like AI discussions and this pontification.
So I recommended this a week ago. Do you remember any of your dreams since then?
I had the burb one again. I've got a recurring one that I quite like, actually.
Nice.
It's like, it's an image of, and that was another thing I liked about this movie, is it gave me ways to describe things that happen in my dreams that I haven't really thought of before. Like when they say, hey, I've got like 360-degree vision right now. That's something that I've done in a dream before. I was like, interesting. But yeah, I guess my current recurring dream is like imagine like a wide shot of a planet in space, but there are two individuals on either side just passing a javelin to each other.
Okay.
And that's kind of been like my go-to at the moment, like giant, kind of like formless, androgynous just beings just throwing a massive javelin around an Earth-like image. What about you?
I have like vivid, long dreams.
You also have like full narratives. Mine are too abstract. Like, they're just like images.
I wrote like entire stories. Back up for a second and then just like go back to sleep or whatever. But just like
indulged, yeah,
fucking type on my phone for like 20 minutes and then maybe go back to sleep after. And so there's, let's see.
Whoa.
Yeah. 3 of them from 2 nights ago, and then a couple from last night, more from earlier in the week.
Do you have like a recurring atmosphere to your dreams, or is it like the mood?
I'd say random.
Right.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like there's recurring locations and feelings sometimes, or like ideas. A lot of the times it'll be based off of like if there's something important I have to do the next day, then that will work its way into. I would have nightmares like all the fucking time. Like it was just debilitating. It was like terrible when I was like 4 years old, especially. And they felt really real, and they would just like scare the shit out of me. And I remember one of my breakthrough moments, because I kept having this recurring dream. I talked about this character in part 4 of my childhood trauma series. I remember having like this recurring dream of like being in like a warehouse with like high shelving and, you know, running around trying to like not get caught by it. And I remember having that dream over and over again. And I think I had it like 2 or 3 times where I would basically follow the same path, and then he'd be right there and he'd get me, and then I'd wake up screaming or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember having a breakthrough moment where, like, because I was familiar enough with it in my dream and I was there again, I was like, what if I turned left? And then he wasn't there. And it was consistent, and I got away. I was like, oh, cool. I've solved the puzzle in a way. Or, like, dreamt my family would, like, get taken away to jail. What do you mean?
As in, like... And I'm curious how it kind of manifests, because like for me, I kind of think in images and these how you seeing this is like from your perspective. It's
it's like
is the story unfolding in front of you? Like
98% of the time, I'm the person in the dream experiencing like the things POV, that are happening. Yeah, so I'm like controlling my own body.
Right,
but there's some exceptions to that.
That's crazy. You can like whip entire songs from your dreams and whatnot.
Yeah,
like,
isn't that weird?
That's. I mean, it's cool. Like,
yeah,
I'm happy for you that you can do that. But I definitely can't.
Yeah. Well, so like the chorus lyrics and the melody were just like there, and I was like playing along with it.
Like you've never thought about the ideas of the first time you'd heard that song.
Well, I mean, but here's the thing: anything that you create. Anybody creates,
you're pulling
whether
it from
in a dream or exactly. Like whether or not you think you're being original, you're pulling from pre-existing ideas, and you might be combining them in a way that to our standards is original, but it's all based off of our existing understanding of art and what that is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
that's crazy.
There was one time where I had a lucid dream, and by the way, if anybody's listening and wants to try lucid dreaming, the highest success rate that I've had is if you get about like 5 hours of sleep, and then you wake up after 5 hours, just like, I don't know, like go pee or something, and then go back to bed, and then try to get into that mindset of like lucid dreaming, because then you've essentially
like half in the...
you've interrupted your REM sleep, and then you're from consciousness like go directly back into it. That's my highest success rate. And also it happens more often when there's like less like noise pollution. So if I'm like sleeping somewhere where there's not like traffic like close by or something, or like my computer sounds in my room, or like a fan, like if there's a room that's completely silent, I feel like that's an easier way to get lucid dreaming results. But one time, and this must have been like a year or two ago, I had a lucid dream where I was fully conscious of the fact that I was dreaming, but I was still in the dream. And it was fucking mind-blowing, because in my mind there had always been some sort of layer of not having things being exactly real in a dream, or some sort of clue that there would be a dream, or something being off in a way that would be like apparent. Or if I mentioned this a week ago, you know, my explanation for like, okay, outside stimuli that might be happening can influence what you're experiencing in a dream. So in this lucid dream, I was like, it was nighttime, there were like street lamps, sidewalk, but it was raining, and I could feel the breeze, and I could feel the cold, wet rain on my arms, and I kind of just like basked in the moment and looked up and was just kind of in awe by the sensory experience of it. Because I'm like, okay, I can breathe this air. It's the familiar kind of like crisp, cold nighttime air, and I can feel the raindrops. And the raindrops are uncanny. It's real. Like it literally is real. There's no difference in my mind between whether or not it's real or in a dream, because it is real, because my mind is experiencing it. I know I'm dreaming. Is my room wet? Like, why am I feeling cold rain right now? Because that doesn't make any sense to me. And so then I think I wake up, and the narrative part of my mind is creating an explanation for the dream, thinking it's real life when I'm not actually awake. So I wake up in my room, but I'm still in a dream. And in that dream wake up scenario, I am wet. I'm like, okay, why am I wet? So like I've solved the riddle here. You know, like there's like my room is like wet and cold. I'm like, what happened? But then I, you know, after some amount of time passes, I realize I'm still dreaming, because some other feeling sensations just tricking itself, right? And that's
based on kind of memory, I guess, or like how you remember it feeling.
Yeah, and that's also what I'm getting at when I say that people don't understand the capabilities of the human mind and what it can do, right? There are people that will smoke DMT and then to your brain.
The Clockwork Elves, yeah.
Anything that you experience sober can be experienced as a hallucination, because life as a narrative, as you're telling yourself, as you're experiencing it right now, is a hallucination. It is a hallucination, and that hallucination might be real, right? But it's it's your brain's way of interpreting what's happening, and your brain can either misfire or be in a dream and experience something that's not literally happening, but it's also real in that sense, as it's another hallucination that you are experiencing in a parallel, completely as legitimate way that just doesn't have any through line into the future. Basically, it just ends, and then you don't really return back to it unless you're like back in a dream and there's consistency there. But yeah, that's it was crazy, so vivid. Is like I'm in an elevator, and sometimes the elevator will be like weirdly big, and there will be like a rope in the center of the elevator that's connected to the floor of the elevator. But the floor of the elevator will be like, if you're on the edge of the elevator floor, it'll just like tip over and you'll fall out. And so I'm like hanging onto this rope.
Like a Mario Galaxy level.
Oh yeah, it was terrifying for a long time, and I got those recurring dreams a lot, like well into my like teens and 20s. And I got one bit of that again this week, but my mind has gotten like so used to these things and so jaded that even if I'm experiencing something that like identically would have made me really upset or scared or freaked out or like uncomfortable when I woke up even. Anything that would have happened like that 10 years ago,
you're like numb to it.
I can still experience that in a dream now and A, have less discomfort within my dream, and B, not having that carry over into my waking state, which is interesting.
No, it's like you've had to come up with a way to like just mentally deal with the affliction of having these intense dreams. You basically created your own like defense mechanism. Yeah.
It's fucking weird.
That's intense.
Yeah, and so I remember looking up because I kept having those types of dreams or that type of imagery or an elevator in your dreams. Because some people will have explanations to these things that aren't necessarily true, but are you know, something worth thinking about at least. And, you know, people would create these explanations online of like, okay, maybe it means that you're...
For falling dreams in particular... I don't know how accurate it is, but I'd heard or read before about that it's some evolutionary thing from way back when we lived in the tree branch. Or
That's
whatever,
fun.
You know, have you had those dreams where it's like you feel like you're falling and you're woken up?
Often, right when I'm like about to fall asleep, I'll get I'll jolt up a little bit.
Yeah, something's just gone a bit wrong.
There's a recurring dream that I had when I was younger that was like I can't believe I remembered about it this week. But one was like literally just like absolute hell for me when I was younger, and I don't remember what age. It was like maybe 6 or 10 or something. But it was one of few dreams that I can remember that was actually abstract, where I wasn't a character in it and I wasn't controlling anything, and it was like watching a film in a way, but like being there and you know, still.
Yeah, that's how I describe mine.
Yeah, and so it was almost like a collection of images similar to like the Ring video, but not that, because that I don't think I saw that yet. But there was like
just something that reminds you of that sort of
and just that eerie kind of.
That's a good example of like a dreamy, eerie. Like it just feels wrong. Yeah,
there's something off about it, and the way that there isn't like a connective tissue to each shot, other than just it appearing one after the other.
Yeah.
And like a sense of randomness, and there's just some fucking creepy ass girl, but like on a beach. And not like a well like the Ring, but like almost like an industrial like oil rig well. And there's like this huge cylindrical mechanism that is in this bottom of the well is like super dark, and there's like dirt floor or whatever. And I'm not there, but like the perspective of the camera lens is like hugging the dirt basically. And then this huge cylindrical tube that would move up towards the very top, and the top of the well is like, I don't know, like fucking 50, 100 feet tall or something. And then the mechanism would just drop, and you just see it slowly go down, and then it would just make this fucking, and it just like, I kept having that dream over and over and over again, and I'm surprised I remember about it now. But
yeah, no, that you're making me think about like the scale of things in dreams is often interesting.
Yeah,
like you said with the elevator, how it can often just be wrong or exaggerated, and it is like being in a movie where you'd put someone in an environment like that to kind of accentuate the fear or the idea of being small and like helpless. And yeah, it's weird the way that stuff is communicated visually through dreams, because now you're making all these old dreams that use that imagery of like a nuke going off in the playground with the like melting people or whatnot. When I was pretty young when I saw that kind of imagery, and like the day after tomorrow, these huge, whether it be self-inflicted or a natural disaster, like that's what would plague me. Like this immense scale of things, like just something so out of your control.
Have you ever had a dream with your teeth falling out? Because that's pretty common.
I've never had that one actually.
Yeah,
I can't, unless I've forgotten, but it's not sticking in my mind.
I've definitely had those a lot of times, but the way that people describe them is just like, oh, my teeth are falling out. That never really connected with me. I had to like connect the dots that was something similar happening to me. To me, it would be like one of my teeth would be like wiggly or something, and then I kind of like go in the mirror and like check it, and then it would just like kind of like not fall out, but like hinge out as if it was still attached by like one part of the root.
Yeah.
And then just like I would like chew, and then like other teeth would come out. I'm like, how do I fix this? And it would just be like a stressful.
In the middle of something uncomfortable or like an obstacle or being chased, and there's like nothing you can really do about it. You're just stuck in that uncomfortable moment. I can definitely relate to that.
Here's a common one that people talk about that I don't think I've ever had. But there's the like, oh, I'm naked and in public, or like I'm embarrassed. I'm on stage and I'm naked. Does that ever happen? Of dreams where I'm performing in a stage play, but because I'm in a dream, I don't know my lines, and I just think about like, damn, why didn't I fucking memorize my lines when I got here? And then I just go up on stage. And then someone else will say their line, and I'll just kind of hope that I don't cringe out the entire audience.
I've had, really similar kind of things like that, but like I picture like a Mad Men kind of boardroom, and it's as I was saying, you're like starting just as it's being handed to you. What do you think, blank? And then like, because I'm just, from my perspective, I'm in a dream, and I'm like, I don't know where am I? And then like, trying to wing it, and just being stuck in that feeling of that like awkward sitcom situation, but then being sort of like stuck in it. The movie talks about this, where it's like, 6 minutes in the dream could be like, 1 second in real life or whatever, kind of like that Inception idea of these warped states of time. And like, that is like a key feature of dreams to me, where time does work differently. It's completely different. It doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of like stuff feeding into that in the movie.
Yeah, think about that. Like if because I've literally had 4 hours of sleep time translate into what felt like fucking 12 hours in a dream. It wasn't good. It was like it was a new sleep medication that I was prescribed like a week ago, and I was like, okay, this isn't working. I don't like this.
Oh, so you were kind of like lucid for the sleep.
It wasn't even lucid. It was it was like partial lucidity, I guess. There were like a lot of different dreams that I haven't like felt that uncomfortable in a while. I was like, okay, I don't like I don't like this one. But just think about the fact that like our perception of like what is time even then.
Well, yeah, when they mention that idea of like, your brain doesn't technically die for however many minutes after there is just kind of an elongated dream that gets crazy to think about, like impossible to think about, but fun to try and break down. It's bring up that as like a human feature in the film of like the curiosity of humanity and how we got to stay in touch with that.
So right after we recorded the last episode, that night, I went to sleep, woke up super fucking early because I had to get my TIFF tickets. And I'm Pacific time, and TIFF is Eastern, and they opened at 10, and I was up at like 6 in the morning. Went well, good success, and then went back to sleep because I didn't get a full night's sleep. And then as soon as I went back to sleep, I had a dream that I thought was real, because in my dream I was still in bed, but I was dreaming. But there were people talking to me, like 2 people. I was like in a voice channel, and there were 2 other. That's all my concern was, like, how did I get in here? How do I leave this? And so I was like in 2 different voice channels. End call, log out. I see the YMS letters on the Discord. So I know it's funny because last time we mentioned that some people think it's impossible to read things in a dream. So immediately after that night, I was like, okay, debunked for me at least, because I was reading things on my phone. And that was a short dream.
Yeah, I still want to try the light switch one they mentioned in the movie.
That's consistent for me,
because I've never thought to do that. I guess
that's a dead giveaway.
But you're making me think of another one, like a recurring dream I used to have for years and years and years after finishing school, where I was like, oh, I forgot to do that assignment or whatever. I didn't do that thing that's due today, the day I'm waking up, type thing. Even though I remember having that way into my 20s, which just wasn't a concern anymore. But that like feels
years later, like I'm still dreaming about junior high, which sucks because I hate it and I hate that place. But I guess I had so much fucking trauma in those 3 years because I knew that we were going to be talking about dream that school and like many set in that gymnasium. I'm like, I'm just going to look up pictures of this to see if my mind's version of that is still accurate from what this actually is. So I looked up my old junior high school this morning when I was writing notes of my dreams. Vernon Barford Junior High School in Edmonton, Alberta. You might see me on the wall with very short hair. And I looked it up. I'm like, wow, this is literally the exact same, like the stage. Because in my mind, I was like, okay, there's a stage on one end of the gymnasium. Like, that's weird. That almost seems like a dream thing. And then I looked it up. I'm like, no, the stage is there. We did, there were like things that we did at that stage. The doors to the storage were on the left. That was a part of the dream I had last night too. I like had to go in the storage door to like find some like fucking dog food because there was like some random, like, I don't know, it was like a wiener dog or like a bulldog or something, or like a cross between, but it was like so small that it could fit in the palm of my hand. And I was like, oh shit, it's hungry. I got to find it some food. And I knew I wasn't supposed to be in the school, but for some reason, like I was trying to find my stuff there. It doesn't make any sense. I was like, why is my bag like a bunch of receipts for my taxes for like this year? But it doesn't make sense why I'm like about taxes. I wasn't lucid, but now I can think, why am I dreaming?
Memorize the layout of this gym that you haven't stepped foot in for long as time.
Oh yeah, it's not just because junior high sucked so much. I was like, that was a part of my life where I was like going through, like coming to terms with myself and still in the closet, psych damage or whatever.
Yeah. How old are you in junior high? We don't.
They don't do that in every state or province in North America either. But it was grades 7 through 9, so I was like 13 through 15, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that is very young.
Yeah, the early ones. Now we're into the ones I've had in the past week, multiple per night. I dreamt I was like in the States, like somewhere, like I don't know, maybe like in Florida or something, and I could like see across the water. And I was like, I wanted to go to France for some reason, and I was thinking, maybe I have like an extra week or two to do that, like one last trip with like the ex-boyfriend. And I have recurring dreams. This is fun, where I'm like trying to catch a plane.
Being trapped in that moment of realizing that I'm late for something or that I'm not going to make it to something. Never like actually getting to it. Yeah,
sometimes it'll be this endless, unattainable loop of me trying to get on a plane but never getting there, and I'll be like on the fucking tarmac, like, where are you going? And like I can't find it, and just it never ends. But like in this one, I got through security, and I could like through the touch screen in front of me on the seat, I could order my plane ticket to France. So I guess I hadn't bought it yet, but I'm on the plane. And so again, reading the words on the screen, I can read in my dreams for sure. But I was like, inputting all this thing, and it like printed out, or for some reason in my dream, the logic was it was 3 hours. We made it to France. That doesn't make sense. We got to Paris. Oh yeah, then it turned into, we get to the hotel and the concierge at the door was Andrew Callahan in disguise for some reason. And we both recognize being in Paris is the emotional feeling of still feeling like you're in a new place and like on vacation or something. Of like that moment when you land and you're like in a new city and like kind of walking through and you're like, oh, there's so much to explore. Like I got that feeling from the dream, and so you
felt it.
That was fun. Yeah.
Were you drawing from memories of Paris? Like you're walking through?
I think it's more memories from like probably movies than real life.
Streets and movies.
Yeah.
And, famous places you probably know.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I had some fucking weird ones. There was like one where I was like trying that they were dying. They're like, yeah, I'm going to kill myself. And
weird.
The logic in the dream was they felt like, I actually really like this idea now, and they were like cool with it. And then so I was like trying to stop my brother from killing himself in this dream, which was weird. And then then he has a gun, and this is all like, all of these dreams are just like filled with trauma. Just so much bad shit in my mind that just was not good for my psyche just happened in those places. So just all of my dreams go back there.
That's really interesting.
And also that's where I spent, a good portion of my life.
Yeah,
he like gets a gun and then does target practice, and it like ricochets off the wall and hits where I was standing 30 seconds ago, and then I had to go into like a side quest where I was I guess like curing his illness, but I had to beat like a real life video game. Like I was in a video game, but I was also it's so difficult to describe, but there was like a giant wooden contraption, almost like an angled pinball machine. And yeah, I'm going through my notes, and it's so funny how little I remember of this without my notes, but how much I wrote down immediately after waking up. Because you got to write it down immediately, otherwise you're just going to lose it.
Yeah, you have to.
And all of it, as long as I write it down immediately when I, like right after waking up from the dream. Yeah, I'm just going to keep scrolling through here. Not important, not important. One of my side quests, I had to find Nancy Cartwright's house. Voice of Bart Simpson. And for some reason, her house was accessible through like the sense of that being there. And then...
Did you like interact with her, or were you just trying to find her?
I was just trying to find her house, like in her backyard or something. And I don't remember. But then part of my brain...
That's extremely
like
random.
Attached... Because it was Nancy Cartwright, then it attached the idea of The Simpsons, and then the dream shifted to like a gag image of like, okay, now we're watching The Simpsons for like 3 seconds. It was just a shot of Milhouse being hurt and used for like a pain meter. He's like, ow. Oh yeah, and then there's like fucking, sometimes I'll get like haunting quotes for my dreams. Like just like really weird morbid shit.
Really? Well, like people saying things.
Oh yeah, do you not have like
nothing that I could pull as like a quote like that, I don't think. What lingers with me is more like concepts, you know?
Yeah.
Like the killer that's chasing me in the woods, or like the environment that I'm in. Like,
yeah, I'll have conversations.
You're making me real specific wood, or this specific gymnasium, or this environment that it's putting me in, this body of water or whatever. It's like this swimming pool, these things these specific environments it knows are going to stress me out.
Yeah, as I'm scrolling, don't worry, I've skipped through like 80% of this.
Something, an idea. Like, oh, that's kind of a weird clash of something, or that makes me feel uncomfortable. Let's jump off from there. Yeah, I'd say that's useful for sure. Well, like writing entire songs in your
I mean, that's
dreams
useful, yeah.
I'd say that's pretty fucking useful.
But I immediately recognize that when I wake up, I'm like, okay, I got to write this down. Because I have that like creative instinct where I'm like, okay, this is important.
Yeah.
I had a dream about Synecdoche, New York, like 2 nights ago. And I met Caden, and I had a conversation with him.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was like, it was like kaleidoscopic and like gray and white, and there were like chalkboards and yeah, need to finish my review.
Oh, funny.
But in like a profound way, where I was like crying in my dream, but I didn't cry when I woke up, and I wasn't crying when I woke up, but I was crying in my dream. And I had like a profound emotional
manifesting in its dream. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think I gave a good summary, but holy fucking Christ. Like, it literally takes me scrolling through these notes. It takes me like 10 seconds to get from like the top to the bottom at like scrolling fast speed. Just these notes on my phone.
True. I don't find it boring either.
Yeah. I love hearing people talk about their dreams.
Any of these concepts that like are open-ended and like we don't really know what it means or how to pass it. It's like everyone's different like level of control and experience, and this collective abstract storytelling, I guess. It's like a good way of describing it.
Because before you were talking about it, I didn't really think about the idea of people mostly only having like abstract dreams or anything.
Yeah, because mine aren't really narratives.
I would have assumed that most people's experiences are like a parallel to real life in the sense that you're yourself in your dream kind of thing.
I get loads of crazy like abstract images that often I don't actually know how to break down, or like so how do I even turn this into a narrative? It's more just like something more than over like using words, I guess. That would make more sense to me, because like it's really like the images.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it, actually.
Image I could communicate into an image, but not with words. Because that was like the affliction I had growing up, especially when I was more like plagued by nightmares in the same kind of period you were almost, where it was often like horror concepts in movies that would plague my dreams. Like I saw The Grudge, maybe a little bit too young or something.
Nice.
That invaded my dreams, where like I'd be having a nightmare and it was like, yeah, that's fucking horrifying. But I didn't really get scared in that same way. I guess I'm also kind of jaded with the scary imagery, and it's more just like confusing.
Your brain like finds a way to deal with it eventually. Although my mom last month, and anytime she's sleeping in the same house as someone else who hasn't with her before, she'll give them a warning. It's probably a nightmare and not that I'm being murdered.
That's right. You mentioned this at TIFF, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she gave you the rundown, yeah.
Yeah, she gave me the rundown.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either, but also I sleep through a lot of things, I guess, but...
Right, yeah.
Maybe shouldn't people.
I appreciate the warning.
Probably it happens enough to my dad, I guess. Yeah, as in him being in the same room as that happening.
Experiencing it.
Yeah. Fantastic movie. Very deep. Gives a lot to think about. Well beyond the movie. And it makes you... It's good to have something that it's not just the movie on a surface level, and that it gives you ideas to think about and relate your own life experiences and your own thought processes towards. Yeah, I would say like an 8 out of 10. High 8 for me.
Yeah, I'm actually exactly there too, with the 8 out of 10, or for the kind of curious mind that the movie kind of hopes you have. There's any number of threads you can pull out, automatically come together with that rotoscoping animation, and some of the writing or interviews can be like a bit much for me sometimes, but as I say, the majority of them are pretty much like 10 out of 10 scenes to me. Like, these characters are very memorable. Lots of the style, I didn't fully love it as a whole and feel like you could trim just a little bit out of there, but I'll definitely watch this again, and I'll definitely be talking about the concepts that it brings up with people probably till the day I die.
Yeah, happening to you.
Yeah, it's not really it's not a very typical sort of narrative. I don't know how you'd apply like any sort of objective critique to this sort of abstract filmmaking.
Really cool concept.
Ready for questions?
All right, question time. Let's do it.
From you quotes at the beginning.
It's funny.
This film is just, I can't wait to see this. Everything about it is like so like cursed, and all these like edits people are doing of the poster and making it like Minecraft, or that weird Steam game with the guy in the pot that you will like climb awkwardly. There's something cursed about it, and then this trailer with these, they're clearly really struggling to think of a slant to add like classics, as if like this is going to be the same thing where critics aren't going to know what to think, but it's going to spin like with time,
as if they were all negatively received upon their release.
yeah, which just wasn't true at all. Like, including like The Godfather, Apocalypse Now.
Yeah,
like it's just not true.
And then the quotes from reviewers were not actually things that they said, and it was clearly just
they weren't even real.
The people, the marketing department that made the trailer just asked ChatGPT to give examples of negative reviews of Coppola's early films.
Yeah.
And then they just put that in the trailer without fact checking.
I love it. I think that, I don't know if it's too conspiratorial, but I saw some people like, hey, what if they did that on purpose to drum up you think it's too embarrassing?
No, it's unprofessional. You wouldn't want then other filmmakers would be like, okay, I don't want to have Lionsgate distribute my film.
It seems like the struggling with distribution anyway. It's kind of like a nightmare movie to try and communicate what it is. That's why I'm excited to see it, but as far as like a broad audience capture, I don't know how the hell this was a long time ago.
Even if the quotes weren't fake, it's an insane marketing strategy to front load your trailer before the movie's even out wide release and say, don't trust the critics.
Yeah, you're
this in 20 years, and just kind of like being defensive from the start. Like, that's a very strange marketing strategy.
That's hilarious.
I got time for one more question if you want to do one more.
Let's do one more then.
Yeah.
From Aspiring Scientist 97. With the Trump movie in the works / coming out, what's a politician from your country you want a movie for? Maybe a political figure from any country you're interested on. 2. I'm going to stick to My Country because I've honestly got plenty to pick from. I was thinking you could do a movie of the like 5-year period where we had like 5 prime ministers. That'd be quite funny. Or even just like the most infamous one of them all, the 45-day prime minister Liz Truss. Or you could do like a good comedy about her, call it like Lettuce or 45 days or something like that. You could do some like biting in the loop style comedy or something there. We got lots of like comedy of errors in our parliament, so it's endless humor abound there.
Yeah, Rob Ford would be a fun one. Former mayor of Toronto.
I know very little about Canadian politics. You
can make one about Christina Shallow, the City of Champions.
Oh, right.
But I don't know how long you could make that movie. Just show the clip as a short film. Just show that 50 seconds.
Yeah,
it's so good. Yeah, I don't know. Sensationalist perspective.
So it's like bombastic. Yeah,
compared to the United States, we just don't get as much like coverage. Or there's not as many. I mean, like, we have our own issues. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, maybe that's good.
We have corruption. We have all those same things, but we don't have like a Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know, we don't have like that whole squad. Her and like Lauren Boebert and Trump and Madison Cawthorn and like that. There's some crazier things happening in the States right now, but also now we're plagued with the issue, especially in the United States, where it's beyond parody. And it's like, how do you even make a movie about that? Because real life is just so, it's already there.
Yeah. No, this has been an ongoing problem. I feel like that's been escalating for the last like 10 years. Because I've been watching a little bit of Veep on the side.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
Which is like a really funny and I haven't got to the 2016 onward episodes yet, but it seems like so quaint compared to like where I don't know, the joke is like people share the clips of Obama's debate in 2012, I think it was, and like the decorum compared to like just what debates are like now. When you watch them, and like it's more like you parody that when it is a parody of itself. It's why they call that humor during the Trump era was so bad. It even screwed over South Park, if you remember, where they were like so confident that Hillary was going to win, and it like screwed up these episodes and these plans. And
oops.
It kind of threw comedy for a loop for a while there. And it feels like we're kind of starting that cycle again.
How do you even like summarize a Trump character study into like a movie? Like, there's too much to talk about.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that movie, how that's going to come together.
So that is happening. Oh yeah, that premiered at Cannes, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It's got like an interesting director, I think.
That's from the director of Holy Spider and another movie I really liked that I forget the title of.
But yeah, there's definitely plenty of obscene British politics to parody. Although outside of like In the Loop and Thick of It, I don't know if there are many good political comedy. The original House of Cards, I know, was like that was a British thing. That was based on UK Parliament, so
yeah. I mean, UK politics seems funny.
It's definitely funny. It's so like when you actually watch like the way conversations are had in Parliament and whatnot, it does seem like an old ass institution. The shouting and it's all this. It's like it's quite weird and surreal.
Yeah, a lot of the Canadian politics shit, like watching them in like the House of Commons or whatever it is, just seems so weird. And like everything's getting more and more performative because everybody knows that they're being broadcast now, and so they're now like formulate instead of saying things for the sake of like the political floor, they're doing it for the clip. They're like, I want this to be a clip, and then everybody's gonna clap, and everybody claps for their team performatively, and then it's like, okay, what do we even do? What is this again? Like, what do we need an update? Do we need a hard reset on this shit?
Kind of, yeah. The places it's like infecting. I complain about this on Jar sometimes, but lots of stand-up comedians have gone down this route of like,
oh no, yeah,
turning their stand-up into more like a political rant where you're getting cheers at your like political opinions instead of like crafting a joke or telling like a funny story. It's just kind of like get on your soapbox and just say your political opinion. Like Joe Rogan's latest special is it particularly funny one. Not for the right reasons, of course, but yeah, Ricky Gervais does it too, and Jimmy Carr and all these people. Like it's weird.
Yeah, I kind of like at this point. I just kind of like cringe when like half your fucking set is just like what's happening on Twitter. like
basically, yeah. And it's like, oh, isn't it when they have a monopoly on it? Yeah,
that's kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't know what political figures to make a movie on. I think I don't know, fucking what's his name from Ukraine? That could be an interesting story.
Oh, Zelensky. Yeah.
There even. You know?
Yeah, maybe we need some more time to pass to adapt that, but yeah, I agree.
Like he used to be a comedian or something, right?
I don't know much about his history, if I'm being real, but yeah, I'd watch that. A well-made exploration of that man.
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, that's weird. He was a comedian before.
That's an unusual journey. Yeah, how do we get here?
Yeah. Okay, that was fun.
Nice. Yeah, that was a good one. Meaty convo. I guess it's my recommendation, right? And seeing as we've been bulk recording a few, this, by my calculations, my next one will be, go up on the 30th of September, right?
Something like that.
Which I only mention because that's one day off October.
Oh.
And I kind of want to do a more scarier themed or, I don't know, what do you think? Bordering right then?
Sure, I didn't fucking do it.
Do I get it? Do I get it?
Do it.
But I also, though, I need your input on one thing because I'm torn between two movies that if this... Are we agreeing this is the Borderlands episode?
Yeah.
I do want to talk Cabin Fever or Hostel. The reason I'm torn is because Cabin Fever is Eli Roth's first feature, but I feel like Hostel is kind of more famous and liked, and it was the follow-up. I'm kind of more curious which you think would have a better conversation.
Yeah. I mean, like watching that movie. Hostel I haven't seen in a while, but I think I haven't seen it in a while because it's probably kind of forgettable.
If I'm more curious what the more interesting conversation would be because I've seen both.
I don't know. I think it's still up to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not helping.
With that being said, I'm gonna commit to Cabin Fever then, if you don't mind.
All right.
I feel like having Eli's latest with Borderlands against Cabin Fever might be interesting, and I'm sure Hostel will come up anyway. Yeah, so an Eli episode.
Nice. I got the Blu-ray somewhere.
So that's 2002, Cabin Fever.
All right.
Lots of early 2000s movies right now.
Yeah. Simpler times, kind of. Maybe.
Sort of, yeah.
Different, just different.
Yeah.
All right, if you don't want to be spoiled for Cabin Fever, directed by Lee, go to sardonicast.com, sign up for premium. It's only that. We want t-shirt ideas. Maybe we should make a post in the subreddit because this episode's not going to be out for like a month.
Yeah, there's a good chunk now.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. We want t-shirt ideas. There's some fun quotes, some fun ideas to put on a t-shirt. Happy Shrek? I don't know.
Hell yeah.
What do we put on a t-shirt? What would you like to wear merch of that we could sell you for money is the question.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a happy Shrek 5.
Have a happy Claptrap. How about that?
It's, yeah. The happiest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like one of the fucking cringiest movies ever made. Did you watch that?
I've seen it. Yeah, it's been a while.
That's literally just like a fucking fan fiction movie. It's so bad.
Yeah. Like some fetish fan fiction thing. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Happy Shrek 5. Bye-bye.
Mate.